Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the artist formerly known as Prince, is about to escape to the Islamic world, to one of the great kingdoms of the Middle East. This will come as a huge shock and an insult to everyone who has put faith in him over the years, and indeed to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. But the claim comes from somebody who is really, really significant. That is his unofficial biographer, Andrew Lowndes, who has worked tirelessly to expose exactly what he's got up to. In this video, I'm going to now mention about the fact that the police and others are saying that they want to get his passport back to ensure he doesn't escape. And the reason for all of this is, and I don't know whether Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II knew about this, but it appears that what he's done is much more serious than what came out. Many of you will have known that or guessed that already. I was late to the party, for which I apologise, but this video goes through it. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, but also please do consider a donation to the Patreon fund. I just want to say to you, I don't do trigger warnings on my videos, but there's nothing in this video that's gratuitous. So if you're easily offended, don't worry about it. This channel isn't about shocking or gratuitous details. But actually, in terms of details that are shocking, but not perhaps gratuitous, is the fact that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, when he went to see Jeffrey Epstein, remember that famous time when he was photographed in Central Park to tell him that they no longer were going to associate together, 2 or 3 days later, he attempted to raise £200 million from him in investment. Now, for those of you who don't know a great deal about the investment world, there are these professional fixers who raise capital. They generally get sort of 5% as a team for raising the money. So it may well be that Andrew was in line to £10 million if he hung around with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein once said that Andrew was the only man that he thought was a bigger perp than he was. So I'm not going to use the correct words, but you know what I mean. That is astonishing. But what about this talk about him going to the Islamic world? Well, there is a problem, isn't there, by the Metropolitan Police? Wouldn't be a problem for me. The Metropolitan Police are determined not to properly investigate Andrew, but that is becoming untenable. When you look at things like the expenses scandal, you know, the police and the media, the police were far behind the media on this. The authorities were far behind. And I think now Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is going to have to face a criminal investigation. My own preference, by the way, has always been for him to cooperate with the FBI, but he's clearly not going to do that. And the argument, by the way, for him talking to the House Oversight Committee is that Britain is actually in quite a good position. The reason is Victoria Roberts Giuffre's brother, has thanked King Charles for what he's done. What is it? Well, collectively, you, me, the British media, whether it be the King or Prince William, together, we have taken to task some of the people guilty in the Epstein criminality. Because, of course, there are only 3 people who've ever carried the can. They're all British. Ghislaine Maxwell, Peter Mandelson, and Prince Andrew, or Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. And so, of course, because powerful men in America were stopping this avalanche, the fact that we have now started the avalanche in Britain, and it's impossible for billionaires in America to ignore what's going on in Britain, that has helped hugely. Now, for me, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's reputation has been so eviscerated that he might as well cooperate. Why not say the people were overage when he slept with them, which appears to be his contention, and also he didn't know that Virginia Giuffre was trafficked, which was another important point. Remember, she said she didn't know that she was a victim of grooming at the time. That's the nature of grooming. So I think whilst he hasn't got a strong argument, he's got a stronger argument than what's come out in public, because people think he's literally done stuff with 9-year-olds, right? Which, of course, it is absolutely not the case. So if he goes to America, he'd probably be found not guilty, but also he could do that House Oversight Committee. But that's not what people are concerned about. Now, Andrew Lowndes has not spoken to Prince Andrew, but he's spoken to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of his I was about to say friends. I don't think, well, he has spoken to some of his friends, but what he's essentially said is, he said that Andrew will escape before he gets into any trouble. So what countries are in the firing line? Well, those great Middle Eastern kingdoms, places like Saudi Arabia, places like the United Arab Emirates, not Dubai, but Abu Dhabi is described as being much more likely. Well, also similarly, Qatar, has been described as a potential place. Some people in the media have also suggested China. I think that's garbage. And Thailand. So what you're effectively looking for, you're looking for a nation where there is still an autocratic monarch, where being a former monarch, a former member of a royal family will be something that will still be very, very widely respected. And there's an inability of the local media to complain about the behaviour of the man. Now, it's fair to say, and I don't want to be crass about this, but it's fair to say that for multiple reasons, Vietnam would be a great deal more fun than the Islamic world, because obviously the Islamic world have the rules on things like sex before marriage and alcohol and things like that. The extent to which those are enforced for people in Andrew's position, I don't know. I know that it varies from country to country. In Qatar, it would be much more difficult to get alcohol than it would be in, say, Bahrain. But okay. But that is the concern, isn't it? Now, I think that there's a simple solution to this. You don't have to take his passport off him in order to stop him being a flight risk, if you don't want to be rude to him and don't want to offend the king. The reality is, he's not HRH, the Prince, the Duke of York anymore. And no doubt his passport says that. Ergo, to say to him, well, we've got to reissue the passport because your name has changed, in the same way as if you change your name by deed poll, you'd be required to change your passport. I think that is the solution to the problem. But I will tell you one thing that I think would be crushing for the monarchy if he was allowed to escape the country. And I don't know what would happen with his royalty protection officers or any security he gets, because clearly, if he goes out in public, he's going to need some form of security, whether that's private sector or whether that's the police, I don't know. In the case of Prince Harry, when he comes back to the UK and he's out in public, it is the police, though paid for by the king, in the same way as a football club can charge, can pay for policing that you and I can't pay for, but you know what I mean. But generally speaking, bodyguards will not prevent you committing crime. And you think, God, that's an awful thing to do if you're a Metropolitan Police bodyguard. Well, it makes it easier. So as an example, say a young royal is smoking weed. Let's give the Prince Harry example. Smoking weed. Well, obviously, if your police are spying on you and they arrest you for any crime they see you committing, then of course what happens is you start losing your bodyguards, not over obviously a murder or something, but over a low level offence. And so they have a general rule, whereas in general, most police, if they ignore a criminal offence, are guilty of a criminal offence themselves. That's not true of bodyguards, whether that be royalty protection, whether that be D Division, whether that be any of those people. So what happens if Prince Andrew leaves Sandringham when he finally moves there, and heads for a private jet owned by the Sultan of Brunei or the Emir of Qatar or King Fahd of Saudi Arabia? No, sorry, Mohammed bin Salman or somebody like that. What happens then? Well, I think that would really crush the moral strength of the British royal family to have somebody who's now taken flight. Because I always said something, and thank God that you're sensible enough to watch my videos and not be unfair to me. I always said that it didn't matter what Andrew had done with Epstein. How can you say that? And the reason I said that was because a lot of what has happened to him is just unbecoming of somebody in a position of authority, to not cooperate with the legitimate police investigation of an ally, to not assist with victims, even if you said you were completely not guilty, then that would still be unacceptable. But it takes it a step further to escape the country and to sit like John Palmer from the Brinksmack robbery, out of jurisdiction, laughing at the British authorities, where you would literally be able to, in the case of Saudi Arabia, live in a palace next to the British embassy and the British would be unable to do anything about it. I think that is a disgraceful situation. I think it's vital that Andrew does something better than that. But the standards, I have to say, are low. I had great respect for Queen Elizabeth II. I think most people did. I don't think many people thought she was a titan of intellect, but I think they all thought that she was a good person who had refashioned the monarchy and indeed the Commonwealth when her father had died and she'd become monarch very early on in life. What was she, 21, 22, something like that. But I don't think there's many political leaders in a democratic country that could pay £12 million to have their son to have a lawsuit against their son ended when he was accused of what he was accused of with Virginia Roberts Giuffre, to pay out £12 million, I think, was a grotesque dereliction. And it does talk to the fact that potentially she favoured Andrew. They always said that his father was not actually the Duke of Edinburgh, and his father was actually the father of the Earl of Carmarthen. You know, Downton Abbey, Geordie Carmarthen's dad, Lord Porchester, as he was known at the time of his alleged affair with Queen Elizabeth II, was said to be the father. I don't know whether that's true or whether that's not true, and I don't think it matters now, but she clearly indulged Andrew for all of these years, and that £12 million, I think, gave him the impression that he can behave in a way that really he can't behave in. The idea that he's going to go to the Islamic world is unacceptable. And I think also, you know, it's time for the diaspora of countries like the United Arab Emirates, whether it be or Saudis in the UK, to start telling their governments that to accept this man as a flight risk after what he's done is wholly unacceptable. But I'm afraid, and I've been critical on this channel before of Muslims. I've never been critical of Islam. I always believe that your religion is your religion. I'm happy to criticise people, not God. But here's my point. For the Islamic world now to accept somebody who is running away on the grounds he's been accused of being SA or indulging in SA, that would be catastrophic for the reputation of the British Muslim community, which has already been so battered by grooming gangs. I guarantee you, in the comment section, people are going to go, well, of course we'll accept this guy because they don't care about that sort of behaviour. That is the reputation that they will garner. And I have to say, any country that took Prince Andrew or Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, that should end our diplomatic relationship with them. And if that's Mohammed bin Salman, then I'm sorry, even though we didn't get you into any trouble for Khashoggi, we are now going to do that if you take him. Not acceptable. Until next time, please do click the bell notification icon. It's the best way to guarantee you get my videos as soon as they're released. And consider a donation to the Patriot Fund. Must get that update out to you in the next day or two. Till next time, goodbye.